Good morning, this is Faith at Faith&books. The sun is just coming up, so I already changed position once, moved all my books, and now it wasn't good. But anyway, so I'm gonna try and do this anyway, even though the sun is in my eyes. Hopefully it'll ascend quickly and it won't be in my eyes. Anyway, I need sunglasses. Anyway, so this is gonna be my June wrap-up. I'm not going to do all the books I read in June, but just the last three, and then my July TBR. So the first book I want to talk about is Becoming Madison. I read this because I'm supposed to be in the presidential read-along. I've never talked to anybody in the group, though, so that's one of my July goals, is to actually talk with the other people. There's a Discord page that's hosted by Rajathan, and I have no idea where they are in their presidential read-along, but I read this book on Madison. I started it the first week of June, and I got halfway through, and then my sciatica just threw me for a loop. I couldn't keep it up. I dropped it for the next couple of weeks, and then I finally finished it. My concentration, though, was so bad that I literally had to put on a timer for like 5 or 10 minutes and just read a little bit. And after doing that for a few days, I finally got back where I could just sit and get absorbed and read it. But it's been a crazy month. But I really enjoyed this book. I found it really educational, stuff I did not know, or maybe I knew a long time ago and had forgotten. Oh, now I'm getting a shadow from the book here. Put it over on this side. I thought it was well written. You know, the writer's pretty good. He's not at the level of Chernow or McCullough, but he's good. I liked it probably because there was more Virginia history in here, and I live in Virginia, and I went to private school, so I never really got that, fourth grade, study your state sort of thing that they do in public schools. So I've always felt a little bit ignorant about Virginia history. He doesn't focus on his presidency or anything like that. It focuses on the forces that got him to be thinking and, be the right person at the right time to be the main architect behind the Constitution. It doesn't even really dwell on the Bill of Rights either. So the first half of the book is just all the influences and what happened to him that made him start thinking about it. He was really a wonk. Like, that's what we would have called him today. He got obsessed with certain ideas. Excuse me. He really, a lot of his experiences really fed into his thinking. For instance, in Virginia, this is before the Revolution, the Anglican Church was the state church, and the Baptists were becoming super popular, and they were getting persecuted. They were getting thrown into jail, and they were getting tarred and feathered and stuff like that. And he, even though he was nominally an Episcopalian, he was really upset by that, and that's what made him feel so strongly about the free exercise of religion, that government, can't, what's the language, can't curtail that, can't prohibit it, or I forget now what the language is, but anyway, so that was that experience. He was really influenced by John Witherspoon, who was this Presbyterian minister that was hired from Scotland to come and be the head of Princeton. He went to Princeton, and he was really into the idea of checks and balances and that sort of thing. So there's all these things. There was some other example I was going to give. I can't remember now. But so it's all that. And then the book really leads up to the almost 4-week confrontation that Madison had when Virginia had their ratifying convention. So he'd written the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation had proved to be a colossal failure. There was incredible chaos and inflation, and the economy was terrible. States were making their own treaties with foreign countries, It was just really, really a mess. And he was afraid the whole revolution was going to be for naught because we couldn't keep it together in terms of being unified in certain things. So he really believed that the federal government needed coercion. They needed military to back them up. They had to be able to enforce things, and they needed the federal government needed to be able to tax the states because, and he really came to that. Oh, that was the other point. He really came to that conclusion because the he had so much trouble during the revolution, the Revolutionary War, paying the troops and getting supplies because he couldn't get the states to cooperate. So that's when he really saw that you needed to be able to tax in order to pay for just basics, the basics of the government, like, providing food and supplies to your military. So anyway, so it's like a blow, like a big chunk of the second half of the book is a blow-by-blow account of this showdown between Patrick Henry and Madison. Because, so when he first started out, he worked for Patrick Henry. He was really in awe of him. Patrick Henry was older. He saw him as a mentor. He was really in awe of him. Patrick Henry was this colossal figure in the government at that time, and in the Virginia government. But he started to part ways with him in thinking. And Patrick Henry was really leading the Anti-Federalists, and Madison, of course, was leading the Federalists. And I think 6 states had ratified the Constitution, and if Virginia didn't ratify it, that was going to really send things off in a bad direction. But Patrick Henry was this powerful force who was a passionate anti-federalist. So anyway, they had this showdown, and poor Madison, he had anxiety attacks, panic attacks. He got really ill. He was not good at confrontation. He had to teach himself how to do that. He was really socially awkward. He was a short guy. He was slender build. He balded early. He was socially awkward kind of guy. And he had to train himself to be a public speaker. He had to train himself to be okay with confrontation. It really made him physically ill. And so he thought he had epilepsy because he would like tremble and stuff and get really ill, like, really, like a nervous stomach and that sort of thing. And so it was hard for him. And he came up with this method, and this guy just reiterates Madison's method over and over again. This was his method that he wrote down for attacking policy issues that he wanted to put forth. Find passion in your conscience. Focus on the idea, not the man. So he really tried really hard not to make it personal. It got personal with Patrick Henry, but he tried really hard not to make it personal. And so even though Jefferson was really sided on the side of the Anti-Federalists, he still maintained relationship with him. He was still friends with Monroe, even though Monroe was also an Anti-Federalist. He really tried that. Develop multiple and independent lines of attack. This is where he was a genius. He just would prepare and prepare and prepare. He did so much deep research that he wanted to be able to answer every objection in a very logical, reasonable way. Embrace impatience. So he wanted to be motivated to keep fighting. Establish a competitive advantage through preparation. Listen to those birds. That might be my cat. I let my cat out, and the birds just go after him. Oh my gosh. Conquer bad ideas by dividing them. I'm not sure what that means. Master your opponent as you master yourself. He was very into being self-controlled. Push the state to the highest version of himself. So he really had this elevated idea of what a statesman was. And govern the passions, so be in control so you don't lose the advantage. So that was his method. It was really interesting. It was a very interesting book. Madison was a complicated guy. He was really smart. He really lucked out. He didn't have a way with the ladies. He wanted to get married. He was engaged to this young girl who left him for another guy. He might have had some other failed, courtship. And then when he was 43, he saw Dolly Madison. It was when he was in the House. So everything, we had the Constitution. He was elected to the House. and he was in Washington D.C. and she was there too. She had been she was a widow. She had one son. Her husband and son had died the same day. This was in Philadelphia? Oh, now I'm getting mixed up. But anyway, her parents had died. She was poor. She was this widow. She had to take care of her 11-year-old sister. And Madison saw her in the street and wanted to be introduced to her. And he knew Aaron Burr knew her. There's so much background noise. Anyway, so they got married like within months because I think she was desperate. She was like poor and with 2 dependents. But anyway, he hit the jackpot with her. She was just this lively, intelligent woman. They had a very successful marriage. So I was happy for him that he found Dolly Madison. She was quite the character, and I would like to read more about her. Anyway, so that's 10 minutes pretty much just on this book, but it was a really good book. And I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I persevered and read it. The second book that I read since the last time I did an update was another Georgette Hare reread, Sprig, Muslin. And that is a really charming, funny story about Sir Gareth. He's a, this is a Regency romance. He is this 35-year-old, handsome, rich guy. He's really nice. He likes being a fun uncle to his nieces and nephews. And he decides he needs to get married, that his only brother has been killed in the Napoleonic Wars, and he needs an heir. And the trouble is that 7 years before, his fiancée, who he was madly in love with, and she was the most beautiful toast of the ton, as Hare calls them, she dies in an accident, and he lets her drive his horses. Georgette Hare always has, the guys always have these horses that are the best, and the best horse flesh, and they're always known for being able to control the horses, even though these horses are really powerful and spirited. Anyway, so it's kind of through his fault and his inability to control the headstrong nature of his beautiful fiancée that she dies. And so he never recovers, but he's got to get married. So he decides he wants to marry this 29-year-old sort of spinster. She's on the shelf. She didn't make a good marriage when she came out. And but she's really nice, and he likes her, and he thinks, I get along well with her. Why don't I just marry her? But on his way to ask for her hand at her home, where she lives with her dreadful father and her dim-witted brother and very vulgar sister-in-laws, very Austen-like, the characters, he stops in an inn, and there's this young girl in Sprig muslin, which is what you wore before you came out and you were debuted, were a debutante and were officially on the market, and you could wear silk. So she's young, she's wearing Sprig muslin, she's very, very beautiful too, and she has run away, and he can tell that she's run away, and he can tell that she has no idea what peril she's putting herself into. So he tries to find out who her family is so he can get her back to safety, get her back home, but she's not having any of it. She's just telling one story after another. Anyway, he winds up deciding he's going to go ask his future fiancée what to do. So he shows up to ask this woman for her hand, and with this beautiful young woman, and trying to figure out how to help her. And so all these people think she's his mistress and all this stuff. Anyway, hilarity ensues. It's really, really funny. And it gets more and more complicated. And it's just a delightful book. I highly recommend Sprig Muslin if you want to read it's a light romance, not even that heavy on the romance, but it's just sort of a madcap comedy. I really, really enjoyed that one, Sprig Muslin. And then the last one that I read was this one, because I'm in the Reading Europe 2021. Belgium kept winning. It lost yesterday to Italy. But, gosh, that sun is annoying. But I read A Dog of Flanders, which I think I talked about. And I thought, since they keep winning, maybe I should read something else. So I decided to try this, because I'd heard about this. I think I had heard about it vaguely this character, Maigret. I'm not sure how you say it. I think, doesn't the BBC have a TV series, which I've never watched, but I think I've heard of it. And then I remember sometime back, Brian at Bookish had read one of the books. So yeah, it's Inspector Maigret. So this is the second in the series. The first one is Pieter, the Latvian or something, but they didn't have that at the library. So I got this one out. It's a short book, really short. I'm not sure what I think of it. It's very, very terse and lean. It's very, very masculine. It's a hard-boiled detective story about this old kind of, war-worn detective who's retired, but his nephew gets accused. His nephew, who he got into the police force, is accused of a murder. So he has to go back out of retirement to try to help his nephew, and he's in the gritty underworld of Paris with like lots of drug dealing and prostitutes. And to me, it seemed a bit contrived. Like he wound up cracking the story by just sitting in restaurants, drinking a lot and smoke. It's just so much drinking and smoking, and he almost seems to have an affair with a prostitute, even though he's married. I'm not sure if I liked him very much, and because it's so, it's very well written. Like every sentence is well written, and there is description, but it's very, very sparse. It's not a long, it's very, very action driven. And I think I like more. So I went into it thinking it would be like sort of another Rumpole of the Bailey. There's no real humor in it. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll pick up another one. I don't know if it's the type for me. But I read it, and at least I know about it now. Maybe it's the type of thing where maybe the show is better because maybe he comes alive. A lot of times I didn't know what was going on either. Maybe the show is better because then they have to sort of flesh out a little bit more. So I don't know. It's well written. I don't know if it's my cup of tea. So that's that. Okay. Oh my gosh, already 17 minutes. Okay. So what I plan to read. Okay, first of all, wait, I left this over here. Hold on. So my ongoing reading is I'm still doing Strength to Love by Martin Luther King with my Christian Social Justice Book Club, and that is really illuminating. We just read his chapter on communism, which how should a Christian view communism. I agreed with every word he wrote. So that was really interesting. And I'd forgotten that he'd been accused by Hoover of being a communist. He most definitely was not. But he was very critical of Christianity supporting the injustices of capitalism and not doing more. Anyway, still reading that, enjoying that very much. I'm still reading this book. I've got to read it today because it's the Sabbath. It's Saturday. Judaism's Life-Changing Ideas by Rabbi Sachs. I've been reading that out loud to my husband. Yesterday was the first day since January 1st that I missed my Bible podcast. I just forgot about it. So I've made it half a year with not missing one. So, but we're up to day, I think it was 183 that I did today. Yeah. So we just finished Micah today. We've done Amos. We've done Jonah. We've done Hosea. We've done Ecclesiastes. We've done Song of Solomon. We're working our way through the Psalms. A lot of times they match up the Psalms to what's going on. And the real narrative is 2nd Chronicles and 2nd Kings. And they kind of reiterate each other. So like in 2nd Kings, they'll say, and is it not written in the Chronicles? So they repeat each other, slightly different angles. Sometimes the names are slightly changed, slightly different emphasis. But they're really telling the same story. So that's good. And today I have to listen 2 more times. So I got up this morning and listened to what I was supposed to listen to yesterday. And then tomorrow we're doing, today, which is what I was supposed to do today, day 184, 2 Kings 18, 2 Chronicles 29, Psalm 141. But also there's an extra one. Every time they shift, they have certain periods of biblical history. And so we are shifting from the divided kingdom to exile, and so there's an extra podcast to explain that, so I have to listen to that. So I'm going to try and do that in the afternoon, and then this evening try to listen to the actual biblical readings for today, and then I'll be caught up. So I have my homework to do for that. And then in July, actually we're starting this July 5th in my Catholics for Zero Waste. We are going to read, which is a Facebook group I started. It's kind of hasn't had much activity lately, and I was trying to get a group read going, which I'm always trying to do. And it winds up hardly anybody ever participates, but I like it, so I'm going to do it anyway. But it's The Glory of the Cosmos, a Catholic approach to the natural world. This is a collection of essays, and I just picked out 4 essays I thought would be neat to read. And I think what I'm going to do, since I don't know if anyone else in the group is on board, there might be 1 or 2 others, I'm going to read the essays and then just sort of put quotes out and ask questions based on the ideas. So I think what I'm going to do is the Bible happens every day. This happens usually on Saturdays. This we're just doing a chapter at a time, so I usually read some of it on Monday and then a little bit on Tuesday before we meet. I finish it up. So I think that means that I'm going to read this on Sundays. So on Sunday, I will read the essay for the week, and then figure out what quotes I'm going to put up on the Facebook group and what questions I'm going to ask from it. So anyway, so that's the reason why I'm doing this is because July is plastic-free July. Let me take a sip of water. And I'll put a link below, but it's sort of a global movement. It started in Australia to try to get people to figure out alternatives to a lot of single-use plastics. That plastic is so horrible for the environment, and we have become so reliant on it, and we don't need to. I mean, plastic just came in like in the 1940s, so it's not been around that long. It's not been around for 100 years. And it's really good for some things, but we don't need it as much as we do. It's all from fossil fuels. It does not biodegrade. It's horrible. It's horrible for the environment. So I want everyone to be convicted at how horrible it is, and we have to try really hard to change it around. So of course we need the corporations to cooperate and change their packaging, but we can't do that until we get a groundswell of popular change of mindset, and we do that by this plastic-free July challenge. And then in my area we also do it in October. But anyway, so that's why we're reading this, because we're trying to figure out why we should be convicted about zero waste, about trying to reduce our footprint. Okay, so that's that. Oh my gosh, 22 minutes. So I'm going to go through what I plan to read in July. So I'm already started to read this because I'm involved in the Reading Europe 2021 reading challenge, and Italy beat Belgium. So initially I was Finland, but then Finland was beaten by Belgium, and then yesterday afternoon, at least my time, Italy beat Belgium. So now I have to read a book from Italy, and I'm reading this one, Don Camillo and His Flock. I've read the first book, Don Camillo, The Complete Little World of Don Camillo. I've read that a couple times. I actually got these last Christmas, I believe, or was it the Christmas before? And I've been meaning to get around to reading them. I have another book too, of collection of short stories. Most of them were published in a magazine and then put together in a volume. These are 12 stories that when they translated The Complete Little World of Don Camillo into English, they left out 12 of the stories. So now these are the missing 12 stories. So I'm reading them. So delightful. It's about a priest and the communist mayor of this little town in Italy just after World War II. And it is both extremely humorous and extremely thought-provoking, touching. They're really perfect. And just the funny thing was the very first story, one of the characters in the stories is in the church on the crucifix. Don Camillo talks to Jesus, and Jesus and Don Camillo are having a discussion. And at the end, let's see, Don Camillo threw out his arms. "There's no going back," he sighed. "Today men use the oil of their lamps to anoint their machine guns and their dirty cars." Because Jesus was telling this story of how it's one light, but many lanterns or many lamps. Anyway, Jesus smiled. "In the kingdom of heaven," he said, "oil is so bountiful it runs in rivers." And then we were finishing up Micah today. It was really supposed to be yesterday. And they talked about how, in God's kingdom, the rivers will flow with oil. So like, wow, direct reference. Anyway, really, really entertaining. Highly recommend this, and I'm delighted that I'm finally reading it for this Reading Europe challenge. The other two books that I have to read this July is Loris. I'm doing a buddy read with Christy Lewis of Dostoevsky in Space. I think we were supposed to start yesterday, but we haven't talked yet. I haven't gotten to it, but maybe I will try to start reading this tomorrow, I think. Yeah, I might start trying to read it tomorrow because I want to get a good chunk into this before I start this. I want to try to read this in a week. I don't know about you, Christy. We can discuss it all month, whatever you want, but I'm going to try and get it done in a week because in my Victorian book club run by Kate Howe, we are reading The Mayor of Casterbridge. And our discussion of this is July 18th. So if I get Loris done this week, I have a week to read this. So I don't really care for Thomas Hardy. I loved him when I was a teenager. I read many of his books. I read this. And then I tried to reread him, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. And I was like, even when I was reading him, I started to go, I don't know. I think I find him sort of contrived and overwrought. And I don't know. I don't know if I really agree with his agenda behind his books, I think. I don't know, but he does write beautifully. So I'm going to try and force myself to be open-minded and read this book and try to enjoy it. All right, I better wrap up because this is super long. The other books that I hope to get to in July, but I don't know if I will. I didn't do Aya in June, so I want to try and do that. I'm only a chapter and a half into Coop Club, and I really want to read this. I got this book as an impulse purchase, but I follow Heather King on Instagram. She's a very popular Catholic writer, and I showed a picture of the Finn Family Mumental because of the Reading Europe Finland challenge, and she said, I'm her follower, so she follows me back, which is kind of cool. That's sort of the cool thing about social media. But she said, I wrote a review of this because she writes for a Catholic newsletter or newspaper in Los Angeles, and so I read a review of it. It made me really want to read it. So I saw this. I went into the bookstore the day before, to buy Three Men in a Boat, which is another book that I want to read that Mark at Book Time with Elvis said he's going to host a read-along. I don't know when that's happening. It might be sometime in July. So I went to go get that book. And they didn't have it, but this was right next to it. So I noticed it. It jumped out at me. And I thought, okay, I really want to read this book. So I got this book also. And then for Christmas, I got my daughter this book, and she has not touched it, The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. But it's like a mashup of Robert Louis Stevenson. Like it's a spin-off of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And it just looked really interesting to me. I thought she would like it, but I guess she's not interested. Anyway, but I kind of want to read it. It seems like a fun, light read. So those are the other books that I want to get to in July, and I have no idea if I will because I'm biting off more than I can chew. So this is a very long video. Thank you if you watched the whole thing, and I will wrap it up now, and I will talk to you later. I hope you are doing well, and happy reading. Bye.